Welcome everyone to Design Bytes, a weekly series that takes a look at and breaks down good, bad, and interesting instances of game design. Today's video is about the most iconic level to ever appear in a video game, level 1-1 from the original Super Mario Bros. I know, this level's been examined a million times to this point, but that's only because it's the level that introduced fundamental design principles that set up the landscape for games today. Most people here have played Super Mario Bros. Before, so we're going to get right into analyzing the level so we can learn the design principles Nintendo used to make a great level and how it teaches players everything they need to know for their upcoming adventure. Right as the game starts and before players even move Mario, the developers here are already leveraging a design concept called Affordance. Affordance is the idea that a situation or object allows users to figure out its purpose on their own through contextual design clues. Mario's positioning here exemplifies this because having a disproportionate amount of the screen dedicated to the right of him provides a visual cue that it's the direction the player should go in. Moving to the right immediately scrolls the screen, so the game has already communicated that the goal of each level is to keep going right. Nintendo then hits the player with their first obstacle, a lonely Goomba who's walking towards Mario. Since this is the first object players see in the game, they may not know if he's a good guy or a bad guy, but since he's the only thing moving on screen, it provides enough visual stimulus to cause a reaction and then cause players to hit buttons on their controller. Players already know that they're not supposed to go to the left, so there must be some other way to get around this guy. Hitting buttons means that players figure out Mario can jump, which results in players either going over the Goomba or jumping on him to finish him off. There will be some players who won't be able to react in time and they might get hit and lose a life, but that's okay in this scenario because the live system allows players to make this mistake and also teaches them that the things walking towards Mario generally need to be avoided. The next section of 1-1 teaches players a couple of different things about Super Mario Bros. Rules and Mario's abilities. There's a set of blocks that players come across that look like bricks, and scattered throughout them is a couple of brilliantly designed question mark blocks. The changing brightness makes them stick out more than anything else on screen, so players intuitively think they can interact with them in some way. Since most players will slowly move throughout the level during their first playthrough, they'll be positioned under the lower set of blocks when they notice this. Knowing they can jump from the previous Goomba challenge and because there's a visual cue on screen, players can combine these concepts and jump into the blocks to reveal coins and a mushroom. The mushroom itself doesn't communicate its allegiance at all, and it looks similar to the Goomba, so Nintendo placed a pipe to the right of the blocks to ensure that newer players are forced to collect it. It makes Mario larger in size, but outside of that, players still don't know what it's for, so let's loop back around to that later. Speaking of pipes, the set that comes next, along with the first bottomless pit after them, is a great set of back-to-back design choices. The pipes serve as vertical blockers if players attempt to just keep running to the right, so they must jump over them to proceed. They get taller from one pipe to the next, and this is used to communicate Mario's general jump height. Nintendo even reuses the highest pipe twice, and this is no accident. It's used to cement the approximate max height Mario can reach without running, because it's a critical piece of information that players need to know. For extra challenge, the designers placed a couple of Goombas between them. Although they can be avoided pretty easily, some players will take damage here. This is the area where most players will figure out that the mushroom allows Mario to take that extra damage, which is communicated visually by reverting Mario back to his original size. The bottomless pit is really interesting, and it shows just how far ahead of their time Nintendo's designers were. A hole in the ground looks unnatural and dangerous, so players will assume it's a trap and will try to jump over it. This sounds easy enough, but some players might not have full control over Mario at this point in their first playthrough, so some might try to jump as soon as they see it, which could lead to their death. I say could, because don't worry, Nintendo's got you. By placing this invisible block in this exact spot, players who jump too soon get saved by the game. This also serves the purpose of teaching players that invisible secrets exist, so exploration can lead to rewards. The block itself has a 1-up in it, which players won't know the meaning of until they die and realize that Mario's life counter hasn't gone down. The placement of the 1-up itself is well chosen, because it's just about halfway through the level before the game's first instant kill obstacle. Players who struggle with the game can probably still get here, and it gives them a method of replenishing any of their attempts. This keeps the game from feeling daunting and helps build player motivation to keep pressing forward. After the gap, Nintendo introduces the concept of varying platform heights in the level geometry. As players move along, Goombas walk across the platform and fall off the left edge and fall onto a smaller platform that provides a bit of a safety net for Mario. This communicates that enemies can appear anywhere, and also gives an indication regarding how they interact with the game's environment. The timing of the Goomba's fall is also a special touch, because players will most likely have Mario positioned underneath the question mark block on the lower platform. Striking it when the enemy is on top of the block kills it, so players learn that enemies can be defeated from underneath via blocks. This is the halfway point of the level, but there are still 3 more set pieces to analyze before it finishes up. The next chunk of the level has a bunch of question mark blocks and a Koopa Troopa roaming the ground near them, both of which are meant to teach the players a few things. The question mark blocks serve as a reward and will give players a fire flower if they haven't gotten hit yet. Players who have taken damage will instead get a mushroom, which gives them the extra security going forward. It's no coincidence that Nintendo plays multiple sets of Goombas after these blocks. It gives players a chance to use the fire flower to absolutely obliterate them, which feels like a satisfying reward for skilled players, while also giving players who got only a mushroom an additional chance to practice dodging enemies. The nearby Koopa Troopa can be assumed to be an enemy since it has similar properties to the Goomba. It walks towards Mario and is animated to look like it's alive, which helps players understand that things with these properties are coming to get Mario and it's imperative to avoid them. The Koopa Troopa also lets players know that enemies can come in various shapes and sizes with their own unique visual style. The mini staircase made of blocks that follows is also intentionally designed, and it aims to help players understand and master precision jumping. Getting over the staircase is simple without much challenge, but tackling it one block at a time is slow and not very fluid, so most players will try to jump on the top block at once to maintain the flow of gameplay. Because it's only one tile wide at the top, new players are probably going to fall off it, which is why there's an empty space to the right of it in case that does happen. This makes sure that players aren't punished too harshly if they slip off to the right. The designers immediately repeat this set piece with a twist. There's now a bottomless pit after the mini staircase to make things more risky, but the staircase's top part is now 2 blocks wide to provide some extra wiggle room. This is how you can tell it's intentionally designed, because the developers wanted to emphasize precise jumping, but they also recognized that a one-tile block is asking too much by this point in the level. The challenge feels fair because players just accomplished something similar before, while also serving as the level's most difficult platforming section. Level 1-1 finishes up with gaming's most iconic set piece, a large staircase with a flagpole to signify the end of the level. Players adventuring for the first time might not realize that this is the end of the level, so they might try to jump over it, but the developers placed it in such a spot that the maximum possible jump still touches the top of the pole. The game then automates a quick exit sequence, and with it, video game history has been made. So why does all of this make 1-1 so special? The answer lies in a design principle called mental modeling. A mental model is a framework where users can psychologically understand the representation of a system or world and all of the relationships that occur in it. It's a set of beliefs that dictate a user's behavior in that system, and it allows them to make predictions based on what they know to reach an expected outcome. It should be noted, however, that a mental model doesn't include every single nuance a system could possibly have. This is exactly what Nintendo accomplished with the first level of Super Mario Bros. Let's recap everything in level 1-1 to really understand the mental model players have after completing the level. 1. The goal of the game is to constantly progress to the right. 2. Enemies move and have lifelike behavior. They can appear anywhere and they can take different shapes and forms. 3. Mario has the ability to jump, and it's his primary way to overcome obstacles and terrain. 4. Mario can collect power-ups to enhance his abilities. These are found generally in glowing question mark blocks and are lost when taking damage. 5. Bottomless pits are dangerous and they cause instant death. 6. The game will require precise jumping to overcome specific obstacles. And 7. The end of the levels are signified by flagpoles. If someone ever had to describe the core gameplay of Super Mario Bros., this is what you would end up with. Nearly every single element on any given stage in the game can be traced down to these 7 core principles. Of course, these elements all have their own nuances and they can vary in their function, but everything follows these principles in some way or another. But you know what? That's not even the end of level 1-1's great design, because it also does an awesome job of rewarding exploration, curiosity, and skilled play. Players who interact with standard bricks may come across a star, which grants them invincibility. Interacting with one of the earlier pipes in the level leads to a bonus room, and that also serves as a shortcut for skipping most of the level, which is a great reward for attempting to interact with the game's environment. The level was also built for seasoned veterans and higher skilled players. The enemy spawn positions, along with the general placement of obstacles, allows this group of people to move through the level quicker without slowing down their pace, which greatly enhances this level's replayability. Remember, this is the first level on the adventure, so between game overs and repeat playthroughs, players will see this level the most, so it needs to be designed in a way where players can quickly traverse it. Level 1-1 is nothing short of iconic. There's a reason why Super Mario Bros. And the Mario series itself is so successful, and while it's not all because of a single level, it's hard to imagine where the series would be if it didn't leave such a strong impression. It's one of the true great examples of design found in the medium, and without it, who knows where we would be today.